Carl's already introduced me. He's told you a bit about what I do from a professional speaking standpoint. I recently launched a podcast called Toronto Story Archive, which is all about showcasing stories from around the city of Toronto, my home. So he's done that introduction. So what I actually want to do instead is talk a bit about storytelling, because I've had an opportunity to hear most of your bios so far, and storytelling is something that matters fundamentally to myself. And I'll start by telling you a bit of my story. When I was a kid, I spoke with a fairly heavy lisp. You can still hear it in certain words and phrases that I say now. And this is something that meant that I was not willing or interested to get up anywhere, even in a classroom, and speak in front of people. And it's something that I eventually worked quite hard to overcome. This meant that when I went to university, specifically at Ryerson University in Toronto, that was my first real introduction to the city, I had an opportunity to move from a person who wasn't willing to be on a stage at all, ever, to someone who was the captain of the debate society at Ryerson University, who won the Toastmasters competition, Ryerson's top speaker, and ended up teaching public speaking through my own program at university. I mention this because all of those things came together to build the story of the person who'd be able to eventually go and speak with organizations like the United Way or Remax. All of these things helped me pitch myself and augment who I am and showcase a version of myself that is able to connect and sound credible to an audience. As I'm listening to your bios and as I'm listening to all of you tell your story, I think what I want to get at here is that we all have a story that makes us seem credible in that moment. Credible in terms of how we connect with people, how we can more effectively pitch our ideas and our product and our company. So what we need to do is think about how we bring people from who we are standing up on a stage communicating with others to why do they want to buy things from us. And to do that, what we need to do is look back at the way that we tell our own narrative. So there are tons of things about myself that have no real bearing on the idea of doing professional speaking. So I've been playing tennis since I was a kid, right? I recently picked up volleyball as a new sport, as a new form of athleticism, as a new thing that I wanted to do. I'm a huge fan of the show Firefly and Star Trek and Stargate and everything nerdy and fantasy and sci-fi, but none of those things contribute to the narrative that I want to tell people who are going to buy into me, who are going to buy into my product, to my idea, who are going to, none of those things have a bearing on the fact that, I mean, in an ideal world, all of you would become subscribers to Toronto Story Archive in the end. So when we're putting together our stories, when you're putting together your bios, because I mean, I think this is less about me just talking about myself and more about delivering value to all of you. I want you to think about the parts of your life that contribute to that narrative, right? The easiest example is a lot of people, and this is not intended to pick on anyone in particular. One that jumped out at me was the concept of being a cat lover, for example, or almost every professional bio that I've heard in recent history at a number of events cites being a parent of X number of people, right? But unless that is part of your narrative, unless that is part of the narrative of the person that you want to put out on stage, I would suggest looking at whether or not that contributes. And if that contributes, keep it in there. Keep it in there and let that augment your bio. But if it doesn't, perhaps it's time to look at the specific experiences that help contribute to the business or the idea or the person that you want to create. For myself, that means focusing on the idea of not just being a professional speaker, but someone who loves stories and loves storytelling. That's what led me to create Toronto Story Archive in the first place. That's a podcast that's society-based. It's all about showcasing the stories of the people in the city of Toronto, a city that truly changed my life and a city that I absolutely love. And showcasing not just the stories of all the professionals and the celebrities and the fancy people of the city, but showcasing the stories of everyday people who are doing everyday things that allow them to contribute to the mosaic and the rich cultural history, the rich cultural history of Toronto, right? Because that's really what it's all about. So, I mean, I have 5 seconds left. So the idea that I would like to leave you with is that your story matters, but every story needs to be filtered out to bring you from point A, when people see you up on a stage, and hopefully begin buying into your credibility, to point B, C, D, and all the way to Z, which is when they hopefully, ideally, buy into you and subscribe to Toronto Story Archives. Thanks, Bob.